Here we go. Good evening and welcome to Money Matters. My name is Jim Butler with Videre Wealth Management, and my co-host tonight is Dave DeWitt of DeWitt Capital Management. Welcome, David.
Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you again.
You enjoying your summer?
So far I am.
That's great.
Too bad it's not the endless summer, but I,
Yeah.
like a lot of people, also enjoy the fall and some cold weather as a nice change.
Sure. Well, just go to Australia in December. You'll have the endless summer.
There you go. So, although we don't like to time or date our show with our conversation, this year, 2016, certainly near the top of most people's list is presidential politics.
Oh, yeah.
Half the country is going to vote one way and the other half is going to vote another way or thereabouts. And we hear a lot from clients about various concerns as to what that means, both from an economic standpoint and in the market, and most specifically, how that impacts their portfolio, and should they be doing anything as a result of that? Are you hearing concerns from your clients?
Oh, certainly, yes. The concerns I'm hearing are that whoever wins, it's all bad news. You know, I guess I don't hear too much positive on either side. Both sides worried about what happens to the economy after the election.
Right.
You know, there's reasons to be. You could point to reasons to be concerned on either side. So it's. I just generally get a sense of concern, just generally about the election.
Well, you know what's interesting about that is the media has a very large impact on how we think and view not only the election but the economy. And so when you say people are concerned and it's mostly bad news, I think that's driven a lot by the media because what do we hear most of the time? Bad news. We don't hear much good news. In fact, a study was made by the Hartford recently, and in 2016, their poll showed that 61% of investors felt there was going to be more volatility in the presidential election year, not less.
Well, generally speaking, I mean, this is somewhat of an aside, but generally speaking, I think the year of the election, the year prior to the election, are generally positive for the stock market, and the year afterwards is usually generally negative. It's the presidential election cycle. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Right.
I think that the promises and the efforts to make people feel good about the incumbent helps the stock market the 2 years before the election, but the year afterwards, once those promises are supposed to be made come forth, then people generally are disappointed. So. But if you look back over time, I believe that's what you'll see.
I agree.
But you're talking about a 4-year period after an election, right?
Well,
like a whole administration, a whole either Democratic or Republican administration.
Well, I think that's the way to really look at it, which is longer term.
Right.
Short term, we're going to see, some knee-jerk reaction, regardless of who gets into the White House and the makeup of Congress. But if we look back since 1960, the administration that has actually allowed the S&P 500 to perform the best has been a Democratic administration. Now, that's in the White House.
Yeah.
It's not taken into consideration the makeup of Congress.
Right.
But since 1960 to present day, a Democratic administration has allowed the S&P 500 to return north of 13%, whereas a Republican administration, in contrast, has been just shy of 9%.
On average.
On average.
Since 1960.
That's right.
Do you know how it did during the Kennedy administration?
Kennedy administration, I think it did actually pretty well because his ratings were exceptional. They were very favorable, and no president has enjoyed such favorable ratings since the Kennedy administration.
Yeah.
Because if you remember, about that time we had the Vietnam War,
right.
and behind that was Nixon and Watergate,
and
rough seas ever since then.
How about Clinton?
Well, let's go back to Kennedy. Let me answer that question. On average, in the 3 years that he was in office, S&P 500 returned 12.4% per year on average.
That's good.
Yeah. Clinton in the 90s probably takes the cake as I glance at this. I mean,
He took a lot of cakes.
He's close to the top. He's not the top performing president since 1960, but on average, in the 90s, 17.2%.
That was the tech bubble years.
That's right. That's right.
That really raises the average of the Democratic side. If you did 17% over 8 years.
Well,
right.
Right.
Wow, that's
right.
a big. That skews it definitely.
Yeah. But since 1960, something else that's interesting is that the number of positive presidential election years, again, as measured by the S&P 500, 12 out of 14. So in other words, only 2 out of 14 has the presidential election year, such as 2016, shown a negative return in the S&P 500.
Over the 4-year period. Okay. Do you happen to know which 2 of those were?
No.
Okay.
Well, wait a second. I'm sorry. One included, again, this is presidential election year, so this is measured by 12-month performance.
Oh, okay. This is the president.
2000 and then 2008. So those captured the 2 most recent downturns.
Well, those are 2 pretty bad years, generally speaking. I don't know if it had much to do with who was president.
So what we tell clients is ignore the short-term noise the best you can and focus on the long term, because the market still ultimately takes into consideration growth of earnings and the longer-term outlook of the economy, which has generally been very positive really since the beginning of time. And that message doesn't come through in the media because they're busy telling about the storm clouds around the corner.
Well, they got to make that big hype about why the market went up or down today, and it's just constant noise.
Right.
Constant.
Right. One more piece of information I thought that was interesting is, again, this is all coming from a study by the Hartford, and that is for the period ending 12/31/2014, the 30-year average of the S&P 500 was 11.1%. What do you think the average return of the average investor was in that same 30-year time period?
Oh, well, because the average investor is probably selling at the bottom and buying at the top, probably less.
Significantly less, 3.8%.
Is that true, really?
I hear that statistics similar to that over and over again.
So you're saying the average return of the S&P 500 is over 11%?
Average investor.
The average investor is earning 3.8%, but the average return of the index is like over 11.
Right.
That's
So what does that mean? That means investors are getting nervous. They're making short-term decisions. They're reacting to news in the media instead of focusing on the long-term trend of the market.
So they buy high, sell low because of the emotional content of what they're hearing when things are looking bleak.
It's not easy, but one of the things...
No, it's not easy.
One of the things we tell clients is, in a time like this, best thing to do with regards to the media is turn it off.
Turn it off and don't look at your statements for a while.
It's going to go
or
up.
add when things are really looking terrible. It's hard to do.
It is very hard to do. How about if we switch to a question from a viewer?
Certainly.
Kelly Williams of Berwyn writes in, David, how should you invest when the market is flat?
Well, Kelly, I would say that you should just stay the course. And one of the things you can do when the market's flat is invest in dividend-paying stocks or anything that pays good yield that will provide you with at least cash flow during that flat period. And eventually the market's going to move one way or the other, and just keep adding to your portfolio and keep diversified, and eventually the market won't be flat. Now we hope that the market's going to be up on the next leg if it's been flat for a while, but I would say try to focus on things that provide yield.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. What else? I mean, if the stocks aren't moving, if they're flat, then go for the yield.
Right.
At least you get some return.
That's right. And certainly that's a better yield than, say, the 10-year U.S. Treasury bond.
True. I mean, there's plenty of good yielding S&P companies that you can invest in, and you could invest in others as well, like master limited partnerships provide good yield. Although they had been volatile over the last 2 years, the yield, the distributions remained pretty steady.
Right, right. Good. Thank you, David.
Well, that's my answer.
Okay.
So Kelly, go with those yielders.
And if you have a question that you'd like answered by one of us here at the show, please write in and take the information down that you're currently looking at.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says, Send us your questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, MONEY, -matters, MATTERS, TV.com.
Our guest tonight is Nancy Amicon, who is a benefit consultant. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you, Jim. It's nice to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you, Dave.
So, as a benefit consultant, you spend time helping employees and employers manage things like healthcare costs.
Yes.
Among other things, the
Yes.
benefits stretch a pretty broad range. Give us a snapshot as to where you're spending most of your time today.
Well, with healthcare reform, so many changes have happened. We call it consumerism. The employees are responsible for a lot more of the decisions on their healthcare. Employers have been, it's not a political thing, but with the healthcare reform, a lot of the costs have been shifted to the individual user by design. Anywhere from 40 to 30, 20, 10% of the plans, they're designed so that the end user is supposed to be paying those costs. So employers are trying to, and the costs of the plans have gone up quite a bit. It hasn't been uncommon to hear employers say their plan that they had last year, when they get their new rates, it may have gone up 20, 30%. That is a little bit unmanageable for most companies, so they're looking for ways to reduce that cost. So they may shift their plan. They may shift to a little bit higher deductible or a different plan design. And most employers are giving their employees several options as far as which plan to pick. So there are suddenly a lot of choices connected with healthcare, and it's very confusing for most employees to understand their benefits.
I can just vouch for the fact that it is confusing. It is so confusing when you figure out what you own and what your deductible is and who pays what and where the bills are coming from, and
Exactly. What's a deductible? What's a copay? What's a premium?
what's in
How much do I have
what's
to
out
pay?
of network,
What does all that mean? There was one study, workplace study that was done that said 25% of employees would rather have dental work done than figure out what their benefits are. And they spend very limited amount of time on their benefits, but actually picking the right plan can impact their finances in a very significant way. You talk about yield. You want to make sure that's a major decision, and 25% of employees spend less than half an hour making that decision.
Yeah.
We all probably spend more time figuring out which new phone we want to purchase.
It's more fun.
Yeah, which gizmo on your phone that you want, when really your healthcare decisions are going to can have a very significant impact on your finances. And employers are very aware of all of this. So there's a challenge as far as people picking which plan, trying to get their attention and help them figure out what's best for them. What's best for you may not be best for you or best for me. It's all kind of dependent on what your situation is. So you have a complex set of choices, and you have different learning styles for different generations of employees in the workforce. So even the challenge of communicating the benefit options, once the employer has determined what they might want to offer, communicating that to the employee can present its own set of challenges. You have all different enrollment strategies, et cetera.
So what can the average employee, whether it's a small company, Nancy, or a larger size company, what are some of the strategies that they can look into that will help them to contain the costs?
So take advantage of all of the educational venues, opportunities, platforms that your employer gives you at open enrollment time.
Okay.
Pay attention to what's going on. Seek out information. A lot of times we can provide, different carriers can provide electronic platforms that allow the employee to, at their own convenience in their own home, kind of pull up, now what were those options, how does that work, and tailor it to what's going to make the most sense for their family.
Nancy, a question for you. What are some of the, maybe we talked about it a little bit, but what are the major trends in
Great question.
that are happening now? Because we have affordable care, we have, and I don't know how it all fits in.
With affordable care, I think the biggest buzzword is probably consumerism, which is the employee is more involved in their health care.
Right.
They're involved in picking which plan, which level of benefit, which deductible plan best fits them. If you're a younger, healthy person, you may be able to go with a higher deductible plan. It makes sense for most people to supplement the high deductible plans with a little bit of voluntary products. You need your disability insurance. People never think anything's going to happen to them, but things really do happen. 33% of employees entering the workforce are going to suffer a disabling event at some point during their work life. We don't know when that is. And the trick is you have to have the protections in place before it happens. It's like any insurance. You can't go get insurance for your car after you've had an accident.
Right.
You can't get homeowner's insurance after your house is burned down. So you have to have it in place before something happens. So there's many levels of what you need to do. You want to pick the right insurance plan for you. If you are someone, you kind of have to assess, what are my patterns in spending in healthcare. If you're a person that knows that you have a chronic condition and you go to the doctor all the time, you want to pick a plan that best supports that. So you can...
That's probably going to be a more expensive plan.
Most likely.
Yeah.
Most likely. But there are ways, the plans are structured so differently. If you kind of look at them, like this one best fits and I can supplement it here. And as I'm getting that look from you, it's very confusing.
It's confusing.
It's very confusing. And HR departments do their best trying to communicate this, but employees are busy during their job, so it's hard to get their attention for this. So one thing, if you have, during open enrollment, a lot of the voluntary carriers' benefits will provide benefit counselors who will come on site and meet individually with people, help them understand which options are in front of them, maybe supported by an electronic platform that they can take home and talk to someone at home about it. But the benefit counselors are kind of trained to help you quickly kind of focus in on what might make the most sense for you.
Where do the benefit counselors come from? Do they come from the insurance company or an outside consulting company?
They can come, a lot of the voluntary carriers have benefit counselors. That's how they present their products. You can find the benefit counselors can be fairly agnostic, so they are going to maybe represent several carriers and help people understand what might be best for them. You may have some smaller companies now, 50 and under, that don't offer health insurance any longer to their employees. Their employees go out to the exchange. Those companies could still bring in benefit counselors that could help their employees navigate through the exchange.
But just a second here. What does it mean to go to the exchange?
That's a great question.
I hear go to the exchange.
So the exchange is just the electronic marketplace now where you get insurance if you do not have the opportunity to get it from your employer.
Okay. So, for instance, in my case, I have Keystone Insurance. Is that through the exchange, or is that not through the exchange?
I don't know.
'Cause I have no idea. It says I can get bronze, I can get silver, I can get gold,
Exactly.
and I don't know. That sounds sort of exchange-like-ish.
All the plans, though, they call them the metal plans. That's just how they describe the
them.
plans. And that can be through your workplace or through the exchange. For
Okay.
instance, a bronze plan is designed to cover about 60% of your medical cost.
With a
Silver
limit?
is
Is there a
70.
limit
There's an out-of-pocket limit, a max out-of-pocket limit
on all plans, or
on all plans.
Okay.
It goes up to about $13,000.
Oh, that number sounds familiar.
Yes. Yes.
After
and you
having
can-
rotator cuff surgery, I'm getting the idea now.
Right, and you have your deductible. You may have to hit your deductible. Some people have a $6,000 deductible
That also sounds
that
kind of
they
familiar.
have to hit before your health care starts paying, before your plan pays.
Wow.
Nancy, how about health savings accounts, or HSAs? How common are they, and would you include them in the list of possibilities for people to look into?
Absolutely. They are becoming more common. Employers are employing all kinds of strategies now to try and help navigate through these waters. So that's a great way to do it. Some employers are going self-funded, so they may cover the insurance cost. The employee still is paying a premium, but the employer is going self-funded. You can have the HSAs and the HRAs. It's very complex, so it's best for the employer to kind of sit down with their broker, with benefit consultants, and talk about what their goals are over the next few years. Because employers don't want to suddenly just shift on an employee. That puts way too much, burden and stress on their employees. The purpose of benefits, employers are always trying to reduce turnover, because turnover is such an expensive proposition. So they want, not only do they want to take care of their employees, they're trying to continually attract better employees and reduce turnover. So you want the benefit package to do the best that you can. And with all the changes, most employers I talk to are trying to make sure that if risk has been transferred to employees, that they also have a way to kind of minimize that new exposure that they have to the financial
So it sounds
costs.
like much of this burden falls on the employer to at least provide an education or an outlet for an education so that the employees can ultimately make smart decisions.
Yes, it takes employers that are willing to present the options and have that available for the employees. It does start with the employer. A good plan starts with the employer.
You use the term HRA.
Health
Moment.
reimbursement, yes.
What is that?
So that is a way that people can have tax advantage plans to help reimburse them with some of the expenses they may incur during the year.
Are they similar to an HSA, but different?
Similar but different. It's
Okay.
reimbursement for different prescription medicine, different things that may be prescribed by a physician that aren't covered by your plan.
So again, this is some of the, we're not going to get into all the details of things in this show, and we don't simply have the time. But there again, that's one of the things for employees to look into to answer the question, is that something they should take advantage of?
Yes, absolutely. They should consult with their benefit department and find out all the options that are available to them and really try and evaluate them and see which one is going to give them the most security, protect their finances.
Yeah. This is generally speaking. Since the Affordable Care Act came into being, how much has the out-of-pocket costs, combined employer and employee, changed since that time?
I don't have a specific answer for that. I know that everyone that I'm talking to, they have paid way more out of pocket. I don't know the
Yeah.
study, But the plans are designed now, a bronze plan, as you mentioned, is designed to only cover 60% of somebody's medical costs. So
Right.
by definition,
Right.
that means 40% is now on the
So it seems like it's
End
not
user.
as affordable would seem.
Well, again, not trying to get into any of the political discussion, the plan was, the design is if people are responsible to pay for some of their health care, they may stop using it unnecessarily, or they may start making better decisions so that they,
Right. Right.
but
Out-of-pocket expenses are high, so people may not even go
Exactly.
at all to the doctor and get worse.
exactly. Some people are delaying treatment, not able to seek treatment, not able to get physical therapy, not able to check out the heart pains they're having because they can't afford the emergency room expense.
You know, it's interesting because I don't want to put this into a political direction, but certainly one of the objectives of the Affordable Care Act, I believe, was to contain costs and make healthcare more affordable for at least the uninsured and, you know, the pool,
Yeah,
the vast
yeah.
pool out there. And I'm not convinced that that has happened. From a cost containment standpoint, healthcare most likely is being delivered to more people, but there's a cost to that. And I think we, as consumers, need to figure out how to contain those costs, because clearly what's not going to happen in the short term is a solution from the government. And I don't care which party's
Correct.
in power.
Yes.
It becomes a kind of a bipartisan thing. It's not, don't wait for the politicians to solve it. What can we do as consumers, to use your term consumerism, to
Right.
be proactive?
The other thing what Nancy's saying is, you know, if you have an employee-sponsored health plan, really look into it in detail and get as educated as you can to try to mitigate those expenses
Absolutely.
for however you think you're going to use it.
The Federal Reserve study last week showed that 46% of adults only have $400 to cover an unexpected expense.
What percent is that again?
46
46.
It's
of
incredible.
adults.
Wow.
So with the plans, people are having very high copays and deductibles. People are spending a lot. It's taking a huge amount of their income, a huge amount of their pay between housing and health care and food. And so they need to do whatever they can to try and make sure that they have a plan, some kind of financial protection should something happen.
And Nancy, one other thought as I'm listening is, if an employer doesn't provide the outlet to become educated to the employees, or if you have your own business and you don't know where to turn, I'm sure with some diligence and ability to search the internet and talk to friends and colleagues, that there are sources that
There
are
are
available.
many tools out there, many tools, many ways. There's telemedicine, there are voluntary products, there are all kinds of tools out there. People just need to figure out which ones are going to help them and how to access them. And if their employer doesn't offer any of them, you know, they could simply ask them, could we
You
get some of
mentioned
these products?
telemedicine?
Telemedicine, it's people have access to doctors over the phone.
Ah. Oh.
Which is great because when people are responsible for first dollar expenses,
Oh, yeah.
it's a way for a few dollars a month they can have access and maybe save that trip to the doctor. Saves them time, saves
Yeah.
them the expense of the copay or the full cost of the visit.
Another great strategy. So there's a lot of information, and thank you very much. We could certainly continue discussing this further. Hopefully you have found it to be interesting and are able to get some answers that are important to you. Stay tuned for next week. The next show is going to be with Mickey McLaughlin, who is with Yugo Stations, and apparently they're involved with recharging electric cars and stations that we see, whether it's on the turnpike or at other major roadways. Until then, thank you for watching, and remember, your money matters.